What's up everybody, welcome back. Now in this video we're going to discuss the fan conspiracy on what's causing the delay in development for the Nintendo Switch version of Dragon Quest XI. So if you do enjoy this discussion, I encourage you to hit the like button and subscribe for more, and now let's get started. So there's a press release today by Square Enix talking about Dragon Quest XI and localization of the game to the West, as in the United States, on September 4th. That they're going to be releasing the game in the United States on the PlayStation 4 and PC. Now this was good news for Dragon Quest fans, but of course people are wondering about the 3DS version of the game and of course an update on the Switch version of the game. So what they did say is that the 3DS version of Dragon Quest XI will not be localized out of Japan at all, at this time at least. They said it's not going to happen. And then they went on to say that while there is a Switch version still in development, they said that development is expected to take a long time from a technological standpoint, and they said they have a long way to go until it's finally ready for release. How long, they didn't specify, so there is no release date for the game at all from Square Enix. But they were very clear that it's definitely not going to be in 2018, and beyond that, we don't know anything else about it, and that's all they said. Now there was another statement by the creator of the Dragon Quest series about his history with Dragon Quest on the 3DS and the PS4 and Dragon Quest XI specifically, and when he did get to the Switch version he had this to say about it. "We are still working on a Switch version of Dragon Quest XI, both for Japan and globally, but when that will be released remains to be seen." And that is all he said. So this has led fans to be a little confused about lack of updates for the game and just the general silence about it from Square Enix over the past year or so. And remember, this game was actually announced for the Nintendo NX back in 2015, I believe in July of that year. Now obviously some issues have been going on here behind the scenes that we don't know about. Perhaps they didn't start development on the game until way later, until after the PS4 and 3DS versions were completed. Who knows exactly at this point, but in late 2016 the game was announced for the Nintendo Switch after Nintendo revealed the system very late in the year. So late 2016 to now we have had absolutely no screenshots, no video, no nothing on the game, just that it's a long time off in development. And you have to also consider that the 3DS and PS4 versions have already sold through all their bulk of their main sales for this game in Japan. I believe it sold over 3 million already in Japan, or at least close to it, give or take. So if the Switch version comes out in 2019 or 2020 or whenever it comes out, it's going to be way late. And who knows exactly where this is going to end up as in terms of sales are concerned, or if fans are even going to be waiting for the game at all by then. Since the core fans have already picked it up, obviously. Maybe those who never tried Dragon Quest before will pick up the Switch version of the game when it does come out. We simply just don't know. So this leads to the conspiracy topic that we were talking about, which I saw again today with people saying this on Twitter and on forums about this conspiracy. So this is something that has been repeating itself and coming up again today. Now earlier in 2017 fans had a similar theory going on with Dragon Quest XI being delayed or being hidden away from people, pretending like it doesn't exist. People were suspecting that possibly Sony was paying off Square Enix or using their power in the industry to withhold the game from coming to the Nintendo Switch until much later. I heard this from quite a few different YouTubers and people on Twitter and so on and so forth, that they wouldn't be surprised if Sony did do something behind the scenes to ensure that the Switch did not get Dragon Quest XI until much later. So doing this behind the scenes, controlling things, you know, that sounds like a very evil corporation type of thing to do. Now, and it would be, obviously, it would be anti-competitive, it wouldn't let the consumer choose for themselves, and they would basically be in control of things to make sure that their PS4 version got the most sales. Now granted, the 3DS version was completely different, looked totally different, different audience, and so on and so forth. So I can see why fans would think that way and make that conclusion. Now it is quite a big conclusion though when you think about it, because if Sony were to do that, many people don't understand this, but that would actually be breaking the law. Now it is not against the law if a company is forthright and they say that they have a timed exclusive for a home console, for example. So if Sony had an exclusivity agreement with Square Enix, that would most likely have to be made public. And the reason why I say most likely is because companies simply don't do that behind the scenes without serious repercussions coming on them later. And I'm going to give you an example right here, so I want you to pay attention to this clearly. The tactic of controlling competition is against the law. It violates antitrust laws that are in place for basically all companies in competition. Whether a company holds a monopoly on something, they have to be broken up if they control too much and not allowing for competition. You know, the court cases do decide on that quite often in certain situations. So I'm going to give you a very clear example of this actually happening between Intel and AMD. So back in 2005, AMD accused Intel of breaking antitrust laws in unfair competition. And the gist of it is that AMD claimed that Intel was offering Japanese PC manufacturers rebates, basically money underhandedly, for them to agree to limit the purchase of AMD products to be sold. That way they would only be purchasing Intel products for the most part and not AMD, thus enabling Intel to be the dominant player in the market in that area. And they were doing this in secret. So AMD heard about it, they found out, and they filed a lawsuit against Intel. And then Intel lost the case, and Intel was fined $1.45 billion by the European Commission. And this, at 2009, was the largest fine ever for any breach of competition law in the European Union. So that was quite a huge case that Intel lost, and they had to pay up for it. Taking that example and comparing it to something like that with Sony, what Sony would be doing would be something similar, obviously in a different way, but Sony would be basically paying Square Enix under the table, behind the scenes, to make sure that the Nintendo Switch does not have this game on their system for quite a long time. Even though it was announced for the system, they would be controlling that, so there won't be a competitor to go against them for Dragon Quest XI. So that would be grounds to take this to court and accuse Sony of trying to control competition with the Nintendo Switch. You can see how serious a claim that would be if Sony did this behind the scenes in secret. However, since Sony is the dominant player in the market as far as the overall consoles are concerned, they're approaching 80 million for the PS4 in terms of total consoles sold worldwide. The position they have really doesn't make any sense, in my opinion, for them to do something like this and to risk breaking antitrust laws, especially for something over one video game. So while this is definitely a possibility, they're multi-billion-dollar companies and these things have happened in the past, I just don't see it happening, in my opinion, that this actually is the case going on right now with Sony, because it's simply just one video game. And granted, you could say, well, maybe they're doing this for other games too, and yeah, that would be true, but can you imagine if this was found out, if that was the case, how much of a penalty Sony would be paying if that were true? And also, the Switch just came out a year ago. PlayStation 4 was already the dominant market leader at the time. I personally don't see any reason for Sony to try to control that any further, when quite obviously the Switch is not going to catch up to the PS4 anytime soon, most likely not before the PS5 comes out anyway. It's unlikely the Switch is going to catch up to the PS4 by that time, quite possibly in 2020 when we estimate the PS5 will come out. So taking all that into consideration, I personally don't see that as the case. Granted, anything is possible, and I do encourage you to discuss it in the comment section. Do you think this is a possibility? Do you think it's not possible? Do you think it's crazy? Or do you think that Sony is controlling things behind the scenes? I want to know what you guys think about that. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to stick with what Square Enix has said publicly. They said that development in the game is taking a lot longer, and obviously there's technological hurdles they're trying to overcome on the development side. And one thing else to consider is that Square Enix is very busy. Maybe they're just not really focused on this port right now. They have Final Fantasy VII Remake they're working on, which is going to be a huge game for them. And they just started their subsidiary development studio, Luminous Productions, just recently. Not to mention Kingdom Hearts 3 that they're prepping for a holiday release 2018 from what we suspect so far. So this company has a lot of things going on, and since Dragon Quest XI has already sold through its allotment of games for the core audience, quite possibly the Switch version is being pushed back and pushed back and pushed back as they prioritize brand new releases that are upcoming for the company. That's just my take on it. But again, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section. But I did want to make it very clear, when people start talking about a company controlling things behind the scenes, you got to think about it a little bit there. You got to see that there is laws that are in place to prevent those type of things, because when a company does do those things, they tend to get caught and they end up paying a lot of money in damages. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this discussion. So if you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll talk to you guys very soon in the next video. Have a great day.